afraid that there would be a reversal of the liberalization which has been followed by every government in Pakistan since 1977. And this will be again a big setback to this country which we cannot afford. While all other countries in East Asia were behind Pakistan in 1969, every one of them, including Vietnam, which was a war-stricken economy, has overtaken Pakistan. And there's something which we must realize as to why this is happening. So with these few words, I hope that this is just not a usual, pontification or a speech for the sake of a speech, but I leave some thoughts for you to ponder, not only to ponder, but to imbibe in your day-to-day practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It gives us tremendous amounts to think about. We seem to be going on schedule. I think we have time for quick questions. If anybody has a question, please raise your hand. We'll quickly send the mic across. Just a request, please introduce yourself. Keep your question very brief so that we can also be held accountable for our time. Does anybody in the audience have questions? Or a comment or feedback for Dr. Saab? While somebody musters up the courage, sir, I have a quick question. Yeah. You talk about the changing role of the CFO, and in a lot of organizations, and once again this is coming from information technology, the CFO also holds the strategy for information technology, which eventually brings accountability and good governance. Is that a fair assessment? Because the CIO or the CEO is only for strategy. How does that role reversal take place?
I don't think the strategy formulation should be the prerogative of any particular functional head.
Right.
It should be a collective corporate management team decision. And the CFO and the CIO are the main players as far as technology execution is part of the strategy is concerned. Right. What I was pointing out to you, which I've seen both when I was in the State Bank and now as an observer in the academia, that for short-term gains, they cut down on critical technological solutions which will eventually help the company make money in the future.
Correct.
And that is what is the bothersome as far as I'm concerned. So if you have a strategy which says that we want to switch over to this particular solution in 2 years or 3 years, the cost will be incurred up front. Absolutely. But the benefit stream will come in next 4 or 5 years. You might be losing the competitive advantage because your competitors may overtake you.
Right.
So the CFO and the CIO should align their decision making with the overall strategic objectives rather than look at an isolation and say, oh, हमें तो इस quarter में loss हो रहा है, हम इस पे खर्चा नहीं करेंगे. That, right, I think is the point I was trying to make.
Absolutely, absolutely, I agree. Sir?
My name is Rafi Heather, a practicing chartered accountant. Also, you have spoken about the action of nationalization taken in 70, actually it was 72, right, we take it 70, and the sort of silvery period of 69 and the silvery period of 69 and prior to that. This is a misconception we normally hear about. साहब वो प्रोग्रेस तो अयूब खान के ज़माने में हुई थी बड़ी ज़बरदस्त, उसके बाद से नेशनलाइजेशन से तुम प्रॉब्लम्स खड़े हो गए. It's a matter of fact that after the Ayub era from 58 to 69 did contribute something toward industrialization, but right from 1947 to 58 and then 68, 69, what had we found out, what bonanza had we hit and that the talks of 22 families came in the limelight as a slogan.
Are you asking what we did?
We all know that the palatial bungalows and PCHS nursery and in Gulberg had already emerged, had already propped up prior to 70s. I mean, there was something wrong going on which called for the action of 70 to come. I am not defending the action of 70, but would add that another step of privatization. Two errors cannot make one right. I would like you to please let's enlighten a little more.
My reading of history, economic history, is very different. India followed the socialistic path till about 1980s, and they were struck with Hindu rate of growth, which was 3%, and poverty was actually rising. Since 1991, there is a consensus in India about openness, liberalization, market-based private sector, abolition of license Raj, and today it is one of the most dynamic economies in the world, and during the last 7-8 years it has grown by 7 to 8%. That is the point I'm trying to make. Imagine that we are so impatient that if there were some side effects which were not very positive, but the economy was growing by 6.5–7% at that time, which is very, very impressive for any developing country. All East Asian countries were behind Pakistan in 1969. And I just took that as a starting point, and I said what would have happened in 2009 if we had continued on the same path. We would have been as rich, as prosperous as most of the East Asian countries. So I do not buy that argument that this was a flawed model. I personally believe that even China today is integrated in the world economy. It is the recipient of the highest amount of the foreign direct investment. It is capturing the latest technology in almost all fields. And that's the model I prescribe to.
I believe there's a question somewhere in the back.
Yeah.
And then we have a gentleman who's standing over there, and I think then we'll have to wrap up.
Yeah, hi, sir. This is I have a question for Dr. Saab, that in the current state of the corporate governance, and what we have today is a huge amount of wealth still locked in with the private limited companies and not really with the public limited companies. And the family holdings, do you think that the challenges and the responsibilities that you have laid out to the CFOs, they are really empowered to meet those challenges and responsibilities?
Well, I think it's empowerment is an issue whether the owner or the family businesses see the benefits coming out of the advice of the CFO. If they do not see any benefit coming out for themselves and for their families or for their children, they won't listen to the CFO. So what I'm trying to emphasize is that CFOs should not act purely in the mode of keeping the books and auditing what is happening. They must have a much broader vision of the businesses and convince the managers and the top business leaders as to what is the path and the roadmap which will take them to higher echelons of performance. So it is a much broader role I'm prescribing for CFO than the current role they are playing.
It's perhaps, like you mentioned, a change of mindset is required. There's a gentleman over here who's been standing for a while. Can we please get him a mic? While the mic